So I'm headed to do the video in the same spot I did it last year, where I talked about the most important thing I learned this year. Figured it'd be kind of cool to do it in the same spot since it's the last video for this year. So let's get to it. So there's people in the spot that I filmed last time, so where to next? I didn't have a plan B. So since that last spot didn't work, the backyard it is. Okay, so let's go to the first question. Great video. Do you prefer Lightroom over Photoshop? Are you still using the R6? So first one, Lightroom or Photoshop. I feel like a ton of people constantly ask me what I use, so that's kind of what I'll reference as. And I do all of the photo editing for real estate, weddings, any type of photo editing in Lightroom. Now, specifically for my work, whether it's like creative photos, personal photos, any photo content for YouTube, I use Lightroom Mobile, and I've been shooting a lot on my phone since the iPhone 13 Pro. It's honestly almost like a B or C cam. It's so good, in my opinion. So I use Lightroom Mobile because it syncs up everything. But all client work like real estate listings and other stuff like that, I do Lightroom Classic still. The only really annoying thing about Lightroom Classic is it's based off where you have your photos. So since I have a super fast solid state drive for current projects, and then after they're done, then I move them to a slower drive, you have to kind of tell Lightroom, okay, I moved over there. And so a bunch of stuff isn't connected, and that's the only thing I don't like. And it's the thing I really like about Lightroom Mobile because it's cloud-based and they get uploaded, so you have it everywhere synced constantly. Are you still using the R6? Yes, I still am. That's what I'm filming on right now, and probably what I've been using now for 2 years? 1.5, 2 years? Wow. It's been probably that long since the Mark II is already out, and I got to use that just recently for another property I did. Shot a rental property, a vacation rental property in Galveston. My other friend that works with my business also invested in the R6 too, and pretty cool camera. Probably gonna make a video about it soon. But to answer the question, I'm still using the first R6. I think it still does everything that I need it to. The overheating is not something I ever run into an issue with. I shot an entire wedding in 4K 60. I shot all of the client work that I do for real estate all in 4K. I don't use the 1080. I shoot everything in C-Log 3. Cinema Gamut looks great. It's probably as close as you can get before you get into like shooting in the Canon cinema stuff like the C70 or C200. But for the time being, I think I'm still gonna keep using the R6, and it works great for everything I need it to do. So honestly, no real complaints there. Like I said, the next step up is just a cinema camera, and for stuff like this, for real estate work, for even most client work, it's more than enough, and super happy with it. Andrei, my question for you is, do you work with interior decorators? Yes, I'm actually so surprised I haven't made a video about this stuff yet, and I feel like it's just because I am just now starting to work with just more. For the longest time, I just worked with one here and there, but it's some of my favorite type of work to do as well. I feel like it's like real estate, but even more creative. It's not based on just showing the wide spaces and different angles. It's more focused on the details. And so you shoot that stuff with like a prime lens. And so a little quick breakdown, I use my 15-35 for all the wide shots, but then I use my 50mm lens for all the details. And it's just more focused in on that and more creative versus real estate. So I like that a lot more. But yes, I have been working with interior designers, and I really want to go more that direction versus just traditional real estate. And then they also said, how do you go about capturing detail shots using home decor, for instance? And so kind of just answer that, but yeah, using a 50mm or some sort of prime lens that doesn't distort the image, so more zoomed in like you would for a portrait lens, works great for that type of stuff. So the next one, would you suggest 3 bracket or would 1 suffice? And this is on my Twilight photography video that I recently posted. So I think I didn't mention this in that, but I feel like I wasn't too clear on it. I should have dove more into settings, but yes, I do 3 bracket exposures for the Twilight photography, especially if I plan on retaining that sky. And if I usually don't, then I'll probably overexpose the sky a bit, because if it's like, you know, gray like this, or well, it's actually kind of nice back there, but over here it's gray. So if it's just like gray, cloudy, stormy skies, then I'm not really worried about retaining that detail. But the only thing is that you still do want to bracket if you have your windows are really overexposed because it's really dark. So having that darker shot to have the window detail would be better versus just blown out windows and any types of lights. So I would still safely bracket all exterior shots, especially Twilights. I even do it for the day. So if I'm shooting at home like this, I'll still bracket it usually, and I'll do it handheld really quick because it just works that way. So check out my handheld real estate photography video if you want to know more about that. That little technique works great. On my color grading real estate video, someone said, how many frames per second do you shoot a video and how many frames per second do you edit the video in? So I shoot all the interior at 4K 30 frames per second, and I shoot all details and exterior at 4K 60 frames per second. And I convert everything in Premiere Pro to 24 frames per second. That way everything, especially for the walking interior gimbal shots, they're a little bit slower. Every time I'm shooting something, I think I'm going slow enough, but then I'm not, and it's really fast. So having that flexibility to go down to 24 frames per second, which is like a 20% difference, helps enough. And then if I'm shooting details and exterior, there's plenty of light. Plus, if I'm shooting details, I'm usually using a faster prime lens, like my 50mm 1.4. So I can have my shutter at 1/25 and capture those details and not get a really noisy image. Okay, rolling through these. Next one, nice video. This is on my most viewed real estate photography video. Funny enough, that video only was filmed on my phone, no mic or anything. It's my top viewed video. I think that's funny. What is your white balance settings? I apologize if I missed it. So a lot of people, because you're shooting raw, just keep their white balance on auto, and I think that's actually a bad idea because you're basically relying on the camera to just say, this is what I think the scene looks best at. And what you're gonna notice is the tint will go crazy. And especially for photos, I know you can fix it, but I like just get it as close as I can in camera. That way, it's just gonna be that much easier in editing, and I don't have to focus on like, wait, was it more cooler, more warmer? Because especially if you have conflicting white balances from window light and then also the tungsten lights, I like to just dial it in nice and perfect in camera. That way it's just a lot easier in editing. Same thing for video, especially for video, since you don't have that flexibility. I like to get exposure, white balance, and everything as correct as I can, so then when I just convert it in editing back to a regular color space, it looks great. So, but even for raw photos, I would still get used to using a custom white balance. This is also on how to shoot real estate videos. Really helpful as a newbie. If a camera does not have good low light capabilities, is it better to bump up the ISO or adjust the exposure and edit video and stills? That final edit was stunning too. Thanks. So yeah, for the video, you always, if anything, want to overexpose just to where your highlights are clipping. That way you can have cleaner shadows. But if you underexpose like you can for photography, it's not going to be the same, especially if you're working with 8-bit footage and even 10-bit footage. You want to expose it properly. That way you'll have just a clean image, because I've tried that before where I underexposed thinking I would retain more window detail and bring up the shadows, and it looked really bad and I just couldn't really fix it. So properly expose it in camera versus adjusting it in post. Now on the opposite for photos, I personally underexpose a little bit because I know that my camera can handle it and I can retain it really cleanly. So just find out what your camera can handle. This was a great video, another one on my real estate video. Just checked out your recent short film, As I Dream. As a filmmaker myself, it was amazing. Subscribe. Thanks so much. Truly appreciate that. I really hope I get more work like that next year. That's my favorite type of stuff to do. Quick question, for your drone footage, what settings do you usually use? Thanks in advance. So same thing, I kind of shoot all the regular footage in 30 frames per second in 4K. I use the Mavic Air 2. And then for anything that has, for example, water or any type of fast motion, I'll use 4K 60 for that. But same thing, I try and control all the settings like I would. And I use D-Log, or I use D-Cinelike on my Mavic Air 2. If there's plenty of light, you can get away with it, but it's 8-bit footage and it doesn't look the best in my opinion. So sometimes I just use the HDR mode because it's a lot more dynamic and it's way cleaner and it's already, properly colored and everything. So if you have 10-bit color, like in the Mavic Pro 2 or something like that, or the Pro 3, I would shoot in D-Log on that for sure. I've worked with some of that footage and it looks great. So if you have 8-bit drone footage, maybe just shoot it in a normal color space unless you just like the way it looks. But I feel like every time I grade 8-bit color, the skies are kind of pushing it, kind of artifacting, and don't look so good. So whew, that was a mouthful. So that's pretty much it. There's a lot more questions that constantly get asked on my channel, but I figured like some of those are about the same topics that I constantly see, and I'd like to properly do a Q&A video where I'll actually ask you guys questions, or if you guys have any questions I can answer in another video. But just wanted to wrap up and do one more casual video for this year because you know, I love doing this, and I wanted to say thank you so much to each and every one of you guys that watch this channel. It's grown immensely this year. Super excited for the opportunities that are coming up, and I'm gonna put a lot more time into this because that's what I really want to do. You know, doing shoots and videos that I can make tutorials on to give you guys, and yeah, I just like it a lot. So leave a like if you enjoyed, comment down your thoughts, subscribe if you haven't already. If this comes out after Christmas, I hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you guys first thing in 2023. All right, see ya. Pound it. Boing. Woo! I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. Hey! I'm gonna get you. Come here. I'm gonna get you. Hey! Come here. Remember to breathe. Good job. You want me to go in? Okay. Okay. Oh! You see yourself? Look, you see her? Hi.